Okay guys, now that you've composed on Canva, it's time to make that grid into a reality on a piece of drawing paper. So we're gonna be doing a 4x6 grid, making 24 squares, and the squares are gonna measure 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. So you're gonna need a ruler that has inches. And when we're talking about half inches or 0.5 inches, look at the methoding we're doing, you guys. I kind of sang that, I kind of spoke it. But anyways, so it is this line right here. That's the half line. And along the long side, we're going to go 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, and then we end on 9. On the short side, we just do 1.5, 3, 4.5, and then we end on 6. So what I like to do, I'm going to do the long side first. I like to make sure the edge of my ruler, this is 0. When you guys use these rulers that are in the classroom, this is 0 right here. I line it up right with the edge, and I'm just going to do a little dash line. 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5. And then I'm going to do it at the upper side of my long side still. It's always best to draw 2 lines and then measure. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my straight edge and I'm going to make sure I leave the width for my pencil. So see, if I went like right here, there's no room for my pencil. So I'm going to make sure to leave the width of my pencil. And I'm going to line this up. I'm going to make sure by looking at the edge that it's as square as can be. It's okay if it's not perfectly perfect. If you want to get super perfect, you could get a triangle square and hang that up, or hang it, you can't hang it, but push that up to the side and line it up with the paper to make sure you're super square. I'm just going to make sure these are really light. I don't want these lines to be super dark because in the end, with my Zentangle, I just want you to see the designs. I don't really want you to see the separation. So I'm just gonna lightly go along my edge and I'm gonna do that all the way across. Okay, so now I'm going to turn my paper and I'm going to measure. I have to get my other ruler because my boxes are set up for this, guys. And I'm going to measure twice along again. And I'm going to go 1.5, 3, 4.5. Much less measuring on this side. But since it is longer, I usually like to measure 3 times when it gets longer like this. But that's just because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. And it's bothering me that one of these lines is crooked right here, but it's okay. And I'm just going to line up the 3 lines and draw my lightly drawn straight line through them. And there you go. You have a nice looking grid ready to go. So I'm going to put my rulers out of the way and I'm going to actually get my Chromebook out. And I'm going to turn the lights off as much as possible in here and block the lights. Because now what we're going to do is we are going to trace. So you guys can lay your Chromebooks flat. And we're going to trace the grid. So if you guys go to your files, so see how it says files right here? And I'm going to get that image that I downloaded from Canva. And I called it typography, so it's right there. We're gonna let you guys trace. I know it's kind of crazy, but we want you guys to feel confident. We don't want you to feel like, oh, I'm never gonna be able to replicate this. We want you to be able to replicate this. I'm sort of creating a little dark room right now, so you guys can see. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to lay my grid on here, and I wanna make sure that my grid matches up. So right now, you guys like kind of focusing on it here. I know it's overwhelming. See how this is smaller than my actual inches? That's not what we want. So you kind of have to play this game of Goldilocks, like too much, too little. and you have to like zoom in until the inches match up. So like now, too big. So to go in a little bit. It's gonna take some finessing, and it's also, oh, that's way too big. I'm gonna focus on this square right here and try and match it up. Ooh, that is really close. Okay, so I'm gonna go with that. If it doesn't exactly match up, like if you guys see it's like a tiny bit off over here, that's okay. So I'm going to match this up. Now, obviously you can see this image size. I can even show you with my ruler. This is not 6 inches right now. It's zoomed into about 5 inches. So I'm gonna have to like keep it zoomed in, but then pull it up and pull it down. So I think I'm actually gonna start at the bottom of the image just to make sure that I'm not starting all wonky. And I'm gonna line it up. So my lines are like actually a little crooked, I see that. So I might need to turn my paper a little bit. But it's okay, because this is just like to help you get a guideline. So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. What I'm gonna do right now is I'm going to just lightly trace what I see. And again, as long as you have it close, it's gonna turn out really nice. Don't draw too dark with this. Keep it nice and light. Okay, so I'm gonna move over to my S and see how my line is a little off. I'm just gonna move my grid so that it's on the right spot. Human error does come into play sometimes, but I'm showing you that it's okay. Also, if you find when you're tracing, if something is like too difficult for you to trace, or you realize maybe it's not exactly in the right spot, you can hold your paper up and be like, okay, do I like this? Do I like the way this bee looks, or do I wish that bee was a little bigger? You can always go back in Canva, since you have it in your hands now, and make a change. Okay, so I'm gonna do this big A now and match it up the best I can. Now, before I move to do the G, because the G is kind of like off the page, and see how it's like black. Let me zoom out a little bit. See how it's like black over here? That's because I have to pull the image up. I'm gonna go ahead and show where it crosses, where it overlaps, just to make sure I don't lose that. And then I'm gonna just, on my Chromebook, click and drag the image. And see, even though this is in the corner, do you guys see how I'm actually matching it up with the image that I've already created? It's a little tip for you. And my image still goes off the page. Awesome. And that's also where you can take your hand and or take your pencil, take your hand, take your pencil, and you can make any changes you need to after you trace it and see it. Okay, so once you're done tracing, you don't need your Canva image anymore. And just before it gets to the color pencil, something that you want to do is you want to decide, when you have the overlapping, which letter do you want to be on top. So I think I want my G to be on top. So I'm gonna, on the G portion of the letter, I'm gonna erase this little line right here. Now I want to be careful not to erase my grid lines. If I do, I just need to redraw them really quickly, because my grid lines are gonna be really important in the next parts of the project. So that is how you trace your letters. And something you guys can do too is, before you move on to the colored pencil, if you notice that something isn't perfect, just kind of, or is not perfect, we're not searching for perfection, but if it isn't quite right, just kind of sure it up in this stage before moving on to colored pencil.